YouTube, the Denver Nuggets win their first NBA title in 2023, and in 2024, the defending champions unfortunately fall in the second round to the Minnesota Timberwolves in a tough, hard-fought, close series. It was clear last season that the problem with the Denver Nuggets was the lack of depth throughout their entire rotation. They had a very short rotation, and it really ended up taxing their players late in the playoffs, having to play so many minutes. Unfortunately, the Denver Nuggets would lose a couple key role players going into last season as the defending champions, which contributed to their lack of depth. And unfortunately, the same thing happens again where you lose a key piece of this core in Kentavious, Caldwell-Pope, KCP to the Orlando Magic. Certainly a big loss, no question about it, but I will say it's not all bad this offseason. There are plenty of good things the Denver Nuggets decided to do in this offseason. You could make a case that they got a little bit worse, and I could hear a case about that, but you do have one thing going for you in the Western Conference for your franchise, and that is you have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, and that doesn't hurt your chances in the upcoming 2025 NBA season. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually think the Denver Nuggets are still elite in this league as a team, despite making some moves that not a lot of people like this offseason. I'm going to explain in this video why I think the Denver Nuggets are still the cream of the crop in the Western Conference, and why Nuggets fans maybe shouldn't be extremely worried for this upcoming season despite losing a key role player in KCP. Make no mistake, this is still absolutely a top 3 seed in the West next season for me personally, and they should still be universally feared across the league, particularly in the Western Conference, folks. This is a Denver Nuggets deep dive for the upcoming 2025 season of every offseason move the Denver Nuggets have made this summer. That includes NBA draft, free agency, trades, re-signings, additions, and departures. And then after that section's over, we're going to be doing a massive roster inventory deep dive of this team. And throughout the video, I'm going to be sprinkling in my takes here and there of why I think the Denver Nuggets are still an absolute juggernaut in the Western Conference next season. Let's get right into the 2025 Denver Nuggets deep dive, folks. Let's go. So as I said, we're going to start with the NBA offseason and actually going to be starting with the re-signings category. And you only have one re-signing, and it is DeAndre Jordan, a depth 5-piece for your team. DeAndre Jordan being a part of the championship team in 2023. Obviously, you know, Denver as a franchise seems to like him and the veteran leadership that he brings to this unit. I'm not sure, you know, DeAndre Jordan's necessarily going to have a big role on this team next season. I think that's safe to say. But, you know, worst comes to worst, he is your third string center. I think he is, you know, pretty capable of being a third string center still late in his career. Still capable of being a lob threat in this league. You get him on a 1-year veteran minimum. Not too bad of a re-signing, you know? Now for the additions category, you do have 2 big role player additions. And, you know, one of them we're going to have to start with Russell Westbrook, who, listen, the memes are out of control at this point. You know, Russell Westbrook at the end of the day is a Hall of Fame player. He's late in his career now. You know, he's not necessarily going to be the MVP that he once was. And a lot of people seem to think that, you know, since his time with the Lakers, Russell Westbrook is totally incapable of providing solid value to an NBA team. I think that's kind of nonsense. If you watch him with the Clippers over the last couple seasons, he found ways to impact the game on multiple levels. It just doesn't have to be shooting all the time. You know, Russell Westbrook, for one, is still a great athlete, all right? Even at 35 years old, he gets up and down the floor in an absolute hurry. He is an excellent paint penetrator. He gets into the paint almost anytime he wants to, right? And whether he's choosing to finish in the paint or, you know, drive and kick, he's exceptional at drive and kicks. And I think the athleticism for kind of a 6-man ball handler is exceptionally warranted for this deal, right? Russell Westbrook signs a 2-year, $6.8 million contract with Denver. And as I stated, Russell Westbrook's still a very good playmaker, still a very good finisher, still a exceptional energizer with the ball in his hands, right? So, you know, the rebounding, the playmaking, the athleticism, the ability to get into the paint whenever he wants, the transition offense is going to be awesome for the Nuggets. I think, you know, it's really exciting to me how Coach Malone is going to employ Russell Westbrook with this system that they run. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air for Nuggets fans to have a ball handler so athletic and so quick at setting things up, right? So, you know, Russell Westbrook's a dog. He's a competitor. We know he's not the best floor spacer. That's, you know, obvious, but I believe Russell Westbrook will be the 6-man ball handler for this team, you know, the first guy off the bench that will, you know, lead the second unit. And I think that is a pretty good role for him. Again, he has also, in his time with the Clippers, you know, emerged as kind of a good defender at times. You know, he has really committed to that end of the floor effort-wise, and I think he had solid results, you know, and I think Russell Westbrook does make this team a lot better, you know, despite the memes, despite all the, you know, shooting compilations, whatever it is. Yeah, he's going to make some mistakes, all right? He's going to make some crazy turnovers. He's going to take some ill-advised shots that, you know, end up going over the backboard, right? But he's also going to provide a lot of energy and spark to this team's second unit, and I think that is a welcome sign. Certainly an upgrade over Reggie Jackson. You know, I think we can all say that. And so I honestly do really like the signing for Russell Westbrook. I'm not even trolling. I think this is a guy that helps your team in a lot of ways day one. And also another big addition is Dario Saric. Saric, the veteran big man who will sign on a 2-year deal worth $10.6 million with the Denver Nuggets. And honestly, I think this is one of the best signings you could have had this offseason. Dario Saric actually had a pretty good year with the Warriors last season. I think he's going to fit this offense extremely well with the Nuggets because, he's another big man that has a lot of good fundamentals offensively. He can pass the ball exceptionally well. He's a high basketball IQ, good finisher around the rim, and he has floor spacing abilities, whether you play him at the backup 5 or the backup 4. Obviously, he's going to have some defensive limitations, but the thing about Dario Saric I like is he, complements this team well, as I mentioned, in the system that they run. I think he's a good fit for that, with the ability to play make from the post, with the ability to, finish in the post, with the ability to see the court well and have, another good basketball IQ big on the floor, maybe in substitution of Jokic or Gordon. It's a good depth piece, and I like the fit with the system. Again, he's not necessarily a superstar player. He's not a star player. He's not even going to start for you guys, okay? So, some people might say, oh, it's kind of a non-headline worthy signing. I kind of disagree because I think one of the things the Nuggets struggled with so much last season in the postseason, as I mentioned in the intro, was the front court depth, all right? So now you have a guy who you can trust to put out there in playoff situations. Maybe defensively he's not the best, like I said, but he just has a good complementary skill set, and I think, it is a massive boost to your front court depth, and that, again, was the biggest issue for them last season. They couldn't take Jokic or Gordon off the floor simultaneously. They couldn't even take one of them off the floor a lot of times in the playoffs last year, and expect good results. So I think, Saric will definitely boost your production in that category. Now, so those are the additions and the re-signings. For the departures, obviously you have the big one, KCP. We're going to look at this and say, oh, they got so much worse. Listen, it is a massive loss. It cannot be understated how good KCP was for this team. I don't think they win the finals without KCP. I don't think they put together these runs without KCP, right? He is an excellent two-way player, one of the best complementary role players in the league. He's elite tier in that regard. He signs a 3-year, $66 million contract with the Orlando Magic in the offseason. And again, just an absolute sniper, probably one of your more versatile perimeter defenders. The catch and shoot machine that he is going to be missed, but you do have some players that, maybe can hope to replace him. We're going to talk about later in the roster deep dive, but I do love KCP. I think he's going to make a big loss for the Denver Nuggets, but at the end of the day, I'm just not sure the Nuggets wanted to pay him all that money because they're already going to be over the second apron, I believe. So it's just not the right contract to give someone in that regard. You're losing another role player, which is big, as I stated. Your starting two guards probably be Christian Braun at this point, but I think is a good player. I'm just saying, yeah, it's a big loss, but at the end of the day, you just couldn't afford that contract. And, great teams lose players. It just happens. You can't keep everybody, man. And unfortunately, KCP was the victim of this in this case. You're going to have to get a little bit more creative with your lineups. Now that KCP's gone, he was a great fit in almost any lineup. He's that type of player. So, Coach Malone's going to have a little bit more work to do, but at the end of the day, this is an elite tier coach who will figure it out. For the other departure, you lose Reggie Jackson, who departs via trade with the Charlotte Hornets, was then waived, basically a salary dump, and I think, this is a good move because, as I mentioned, the Nuggets have some cap issues, right? And so they clear some, Reggie Jackson's salary off the books. He ends up signing with my Sixers. I'm kind of happy about that as a Sixers fan, but, I think Reggie Jackson, another part of this championship team, he put a lot of good time in Denver, had an elevated role than maybe you'd like last season as, the backup point guard, the 6-man type of point guard who played a lot of minutes running that second unit. As I stated before, you would certainly upgrade on that with Russell Westbrook. And I do think Reggie Jackson was a good, solid depth piece for the guards, but I think, again, not so sure you want to be playing him as many minutes as you did last year. And I do think, Russell Westbrook will be much more equipped in that role. So I'm not losing sleep over it if I'm a Nuggets fan, is what I'm trying to say. And so the offseason, yeah, you lose one of your best players, KCP, your starting two guard. You do have players that I think could be in line to receive a similar role that could provide similar production. But you also upgrade on a couple things, including the front court depth with Dario Saric. That is a big signing, and I think he's going to make such a big impact on this team, as well as Russell Westbrook, who completely upgrades and revitalizes this second unit, So it's basically trading like 2 5s for a 10, or you might say it's 2 5s for a 15 if you want to go that far with KCP. But I just think, they fill some big needs with this team with the front court depth and the bench scoring. Not so sure Russell Westbrook's going to start. Maybe you'll let me know down in the comment section. I don't love the fit with that. I think he's best utilized as a second unit energizer microwave guy. Come in short bursts and make things happen in quick succession. But you certainly can't deny that, KCP is a big loss, but you also certainly can't deny that you upgrade on two big needs for this team. So at the end of the day, I think you do lose a little bit of value in this offseason period, but you're still, in great shape as far as the 2025 season goes. Even losing KCP, you're one of the best teams in the league. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't make this team any less capable of making another finals run, in my opinion. It certainly hurts their cause a little bit, but I don't think it's this like massive thing where they just have no chance next season because they lose one of their best role players. I think it's, you know, a situation where you have to be a little bit more creative if you're Coach Malone. Maybe you see some activity at the deadline. That could certainly be a possibility as well, but you just couldn't afford them. You know, that's the bottom line. And so, you know, I give the offseason a C, like a solid C. Not the best, not the worst. You know, it could have been worse. It could have been better, certainly, but I do think, you know, it is a good offset for gaining Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric, addressing those needs, or losing KCP. So it's not enough to give it like an F tier offseason. That's what a lot of people say about the Nuggets. I kind of disagree. I still think they're in great shape. And now let's get into the 2024 NBA draft segment of the video, where you would select, with the 22nd pick overall in this draft, DaRon Holmes II. So DaRon Holmes II, you know, is a backup center in my opinion. This could be your backup five. I really truly think that there's going to be a little bit of competition for this position. We'll talk about later in the video in the roster deep dive, but DaRon Holmes is an awesome player, and I think he's, again, another massive front court depth piece for this team. For one, he's an excellent defender, okay? So I think his defense off the bench for the front court is going to be massive for this team. You know, I think it's just kind of a different look. You bring in Dario Saric, not the best defender. You have DeAndre Jordan, who's a little bit older, not sure you want to be playing him at backup five. You have some other guys who we're going to talk about, but DaRon Holmes is a lot different than those players. He's very athletic, absolute defensive monster. I think that's what he's going to be, you know? He's a good screener, good finisher, can operate pick and rolls as a roll man very well, in my opinion. He definitely has good athletic traits. You know, he's a little bit undersized for a center, but he has great mobility, and I'm not sure he's ever going to be a floor spacer or, you know, an offensive juggernaut necessarily. He's pretty raw in that regard, but I will say I just love the athleticism and the interior defense that he's going to bring to this team. You know, you just need more rim protection, and, you know, another guy that you're losing a defender in KCP. I know he's a very different type of player, but I'm saying you lose defense there, and so you know, gain some back in a different role, albeit, or a different position, but this guy has a lot of energy. You know, that's one of the things I think they're trying to do with this, you know, roster in the second unit, is bring in guys with high energy. DaRon Holmes, Russell Westbrook, these guys have so much activity in short bursts, and I love that for the Nuggets. I think it makes a great fit. So you know, this is one of my favorite picks. You know, 22nd overall, getting a guy who could possibly be your backup five next season. You know, he could play the four. I think he's best as like a high energy, you know, low minutes, like backup five man, and I just love the addition, whether or not you play him as the backup five next year, or you let him develop a little bit, or, you know, you play him in a pinch at certain matchups, certain lineups, right? Could be dictated by matchups. We'll just have to see, but I do think he makes a big time addition to this team. Another front court member you're bringing in now that can provide good minutes while Jokic or Gordon is on the bench. I love it. So for that pick, you know, I'm gonna have to give it a B+. Like, I think another thing where you just address a need, you know, front court depth. Now you have two guys, and him and Saric and some other guys we're going to talk about, that, you know, can realistically play good minutes in a perfect world, while some of these guys are on the, you know, Jokic and Gordon are on the bench at any given time. And so hopefully DaRon, you know, Holmes II will develop into a good player. We'll just have to see, but I like the move. I'm going to give it a B+. And now let's get into my favorite part of the deep dive, which is the roster deep dive part of the video, folks. I'm going to be going through player by player and, you know, giving my takes on them, how they fit in with this team next season. Let me know down in the comment section, Nuggets fans, how you feeling about your team next season? Are you super worried about the KCP loss? I'm telling you, I wouldn't be that worried. You're still going to be top of the top in the West, in my opinion. Still have as good a chance as anyone to win the West. Let's get into the 2025 projected roster for the Denver Nuggets, folks. Let's go. So, you know, as I mentioned in the intro, you have the best player in the world. I don't even think that's up for debate. You know, Jokic is the best player in the world, and the reigning MVP, you know, coming off maybe his best season. It's crazy that he just tops his own self every single season when he's had some of the best production ever over the last 5 years, but now another MVP to add to his resume. And, you know, there's nothing we can say bad about Jokic. Again, the best player in the world, and obviously last season, you know, I think the biggest issue in the playoffs, for one, was just the matchup. You didn't match up well against the Wolves. It was a bad matchup for you guys. But I do think if this team had a little bit more depth off the bench, as far as the front court goes particularly, you might win that series. I mean, it was very close. You know, you gave it your best, and at the end of the day, you know, it was just a bad matchup. But I do think Jokic got a little bit gassed in that series. Yeah, he was asked to do so much in that series. You know, obviously, you expect the best player in the world to do those kind of things, but to do it for as long as he was, you know, asked to do. I mean, he played 40 minutes a game in the playoffs last season. His averages were about as good as you could, you know, expect for him in the playoffs. I mean, it's just, this might be the most talented offensive player of all time. I mean, his basketball IQ is similar to some of the greats, right? So I think next season you see another MVP caliber season. There's no reason to think that he won't. He's only 29 years old, which is crazy. It feels like he shouldn't be able to be this good for this long, you know what I mean? And still be only 29 years old. There's no signs or indicators of him dropping off in production. He will be an MVP candidate next season. He'll be in the finalists, knock on wood, barring health. But again, I just think hopefully he will have to play less minutes next season, you know, not only throughout the postseason, but throughout the regular season. I mean, this guy guy is taxed so much for this team, and he's the best player in the world. He should be taxed, but like, you just can't ask him to do literally everything all the time. And I think, if Murray played a little bit better in that series, he was dealing with some injuries. If you had a little bit more rest time for Jokic throughout some of those games, you could possibly win the series. I mean, it was a coin flip who was going to win that series towards the end of it. So Jokic is the reason that you basically don't have to worry about this team, losing role players here and there, because at the end of the day, you're always going to have a shot to compete for a title if he's on the floor, and he's going to do similar things next season. So there's no reason to panic if you're a Nuggets fan. You have the best player in the world at only 29 years old. He's locked in long term. You have enough talent around him to where if everything goes well, you'll be in the finals again. There's no question about it. Jamal Murray, who basically, dealt with some injuries, as I mentioned, throughout the postseason, some nagging stuff. At the end of the day, he didn't perform his best. If you look at the efficiency, if you look at the production here, it's just not up to, Murray's standards from what we saw in the 2023 playoffs. He just, again, another guy that just was affected by the matchups as well. I mean, they were just all over him. He was getting trapped half court almost every possession. Like, the Minnesota defense was so smothering for him. So not only that, like, he already was at kind of a disadvantage there, but again, just, you're asking just a little bit too much of your two best players, in my opinion, offensively, when they all have to play, 40 minutes a game and still, play all NBA caliber basketball for all 40 minutes. They can't have one break on the bench. The depth was an issue. And I think adding Russell Westbrook, a substitution for Jamal Murray, could be really big. Again, I don't think Russell Westbrook starts. I think Murray is the point guard, and Russell Westbrook can't play off ball. Murray could play off ball, but I just don't think that's what you want to do with him. I think Westbrook comes off the bench, but certainly Murray has to be a little bit better in the playoffs next season. Hopefully we see things go that way. Let me know down in the comment section, Nuggets fans, like, how much was it injuries and how much was it Murray just not playing very well, and how much of it was like the matchup? Because I think it's all three of those things. I think all three things can be true. I think the matchup was awful for him. I think the having to do so much of the lifting offensively was an issue, and I think the injuries as well. Like, I just don't think he played his best. I don't think the matchup was good, and I think the injuries factored in. But either way, I think Murray, obviously one of the top tier players in this league. You can't say that he's not capable of being the number two. We've already literally seen it just a couple years ago. So, expect a similar type of production from Murray again as the second option on this team, and he's the guy late in games that closes a lot of these games out, despite Jokic being the best player in the world. You just need a ball handler who's going to be able to, close a game out. Murray's so capable of doing that. We see it time and time again. He is the go-to guy late in these games. And I just think, the connection with Jokic, it's the best two-man punch in the league. Still, you could say Tatum and Braun. You could make a case for some other guys. I just think this is the best two-man punch, no question. Michael Porter Jr., an intriguing player on an intriguing contract. How are we feeling? Again, Nuggets fans, let me know down in the comment section. Are you okay with MPJ's contract? Do you think it's a little too high? Would you rather see that money go somewhere else, maybe to some more role players? I don't know. I think MPJ, obviously one of the most dynamic shooters in the league, especially for a forward. I mean, the level of contested threes that he takes consistently and knocks them down consistently it's amazing to me. You could say MPJ's a little bit inconsistent, but at the end of the day, health wasn't an issue for him last season. I think that's an encouraging sign. He played 81 games throughout the regular season, and similar production. He averaged 17 points per game, 7 rebounds. We saw the rebounds take a massive jump last season, which I think is a good sign. I just think he was asked to do a little bit more, and he provided that for the most part. I mean, 40% from 3 on 7 attempts per game. That really doesn't even do it justice. Those are elite numbers, but it still doesn't, do it justice. Just how difficult some of these shots are that he's making on a regular basis. I'm telling you, he's high-fiving a closeout on every single release, and he's knocking them in on the move, off the catch. He's a great cutter. He's a good IQ player, plays off the ball very well. Again, another guy that's just such a great complementary guy in this system. He's one of the best off-ball, players in the league. He just provides so much gravity for this team, and I think there's no reason to think he can't do that next season. It's hard to believe MPJ is only 26 years old. I feel like he's been in the league longer than that. Just such a great off-ball player. That's one reason I don't think you're extremely worried about the KCP, going to the Magic, is because you still have an elite off-ball shooter in MPJ who's gonna be able to do that in a similar way. Again, just another guy that is just so valuable to this team system and the way they function. He gives everybody space to do what they want, including Murray, including Jokic, whatever it is. He gives them the space to operate, and I think it's just so valuable. So yeah, I love MPJ. I think, he's gonna have another big season next year. Hopefully, knock on wood, another great healthy season for him. Hopefully we can see the rebounds, consistently stay at around 7 a game. I think that's great numbers for him. We know the shooting's always gonna be on point. We know he's capable of big scoring nights. I wonder if he'll have to do a little bit more now that KCP is gone, but we'll just have to see. But I think the third best player on this team is certainly Aaron Gordon. I mean, he is like the connector, the glue piece to this team, similar to like what Drew Holiday was to the Celtics last year. I mean, he does everything so well. He can dribble, he can shoot, he can pass. You know, the shooting, they left him open all playoffs last season and he made him pay. I mean, that is a great sign. He averaged 40% in the playoffs last season, actually 41% on threes, 2.3 attempts per game. I mean, they were just leaving him open and they're like, you know, he's gonna have to shoot and beat us. That's gonna be how we lose. And he did it consistently, just like in 2023. He always steps up in big moments. He's one of the best complementary pieces. He's a great cutter. He's one of the most versatile defenders in the league. He does not get enough credit for his versatile defense and how much he impacts this team defensively. It's astonishing how underrated this guy is as far as the league goes. I mean, another high IQ guy who just moves exceptionally well in this system without the basketball. He can make things happen in transition. Obviously a freak athlete, you know, great poster dunker. Another guy that's a little bit younger than I thought he was, you know, until looking at this team. He's only 28 years old, which is crazy, but the perfect power forward to pair Jokic with. And these four players, this is why I'm not worried about the Nuggets. As long as you have these four guys healthy and playing, you know, up to par, I just don't think you could say they're not a top tier team in the West who's capable of another finals run. I don't think you could say that, you know. Again, we talk about Dario Saric and Russell Westbrook, how they impact this team. I think it's a big time impact. You know, I think Dario Saric could be competing for backup 5 minutes, you know, likely play the backup 4. I think he's the substitution for Gordon, honestly, but I think he provides similar positioning as far as where Coach Malone will decide to play him as Jokic. He's a good offensive rebounder. He's a smart guy, good post playmaker. You know, he just makes the right play a lot of times. He's a good floor spacer, 38% from 3 last season on 3 attempts per game. That's excellent. Yeah, I just think he comes in and, you know, provides similar kind of on a miniature scale to Jokic, what you'd see offensively in that type of role, right? So good depth piece there. We talked about Russell Westbrook, how he energizes the second unit. That's one thing they needed last season. Listen, he's not done, man. He's 35 and he's coming off a season where he averaged 11, 5, and 5. Again, the efficiency is always a little bit of a concern. The turnovers are a concern, but I do think with him playing under Coach Malone, like you'll see some of that decrease. I mean, he's going to be in a very specific role with this team. That's one thing Coach Malone will certainly have to put him in. He's going to have to accept it. And if he doesn't accept it and play up to par, he'll, you know, get taken off the floor. That's how it works in a system. And that is going to increase his likelihood of success, in my opinion, playing under one of the best coaches of this era in Coach Malone. I see no issue with the Russell Westbrook sign. I think it makes your team a ton better if you're Denver. I wouldn't be worried about it. Christian Braun, he's going to have to be your starting 2 guard next season, in my opinion. I think he has the size for it. I think he can defend okay. I think he is going to have to be a little bit more volume heavy 3-point shooting wise. You know, he's going to have to take a lot more catch and shoots, but again, he's a good shooter. You know, 38% on 2 attempts per game last season. This is a guy who played 82 games last year, all right? But I think he elevates to your starting 2 guard or, you know, takes a bigger minutes role. No question he's going to have to play over 20 minutes per game next season, but he's a versatile player, good off-ball role player, just knows his role, plays it well. He's very okay with that, I think. And I just think Christian Braun, another, you know, player that just fits in the system so well, and he's a good competitor. I think he's probably your starting 2 guard. He has a size for it. You know, I think he is most natural to 2 guard, but I just think he could be a good fit with all those 4 guys in the starting lineup. I think he fits pretty well. And it could also be Julian Strawther, who Strawther was basically your first round pick last season at 29th overall. You know, you acquired him from Indiana, and he played 50 games last season, but didn't find a consistent role. We watched Julian Strawther basically lead the summer league in scoring. You know, he is at his best a great shooter. Okay, so off the dribble, DHOs, like he can take very difficult threes, and I think he's a confident shooter with good mechanics. He'll just start falling in. You know, I do think he has the size to play 2 guard. We'll have to see between him and Braun who wins that starting job, but if you look at his summer league numbers, if it's anything close to that, this could be your starting 2 guard. That's another reason I'm not so worried about losing KCP, is because Strawther's shooting. All right, so as a catch and shoot guy, you know, if he can provide 36 to 40% from 3 on high catch and shoot volume, you know, I don't see how you don't love this guy as either your starting 2 guard or a big roll off the bench kind of guy. 22 years old, still has a ton of room to grow, but he can handle the ball a little bit. I think he has okay upside as a pick and roll playmaker. I don't think he's going to be the best at it, but I think he can do it enough to fit in this system as a guard. It's just the shooting. You know, it has to be more consistent next season. And again, if you look at his summer league, I think we're seeing signs of that already. I love this player, and I think let me know down in the comments section if he's going to be your starting 2 guard or if it's Christian Braun. I think either one could realistically do it if we see a similar summer league Julian Strawther than, you know, compared to last year. So Zeke Nnaji is going into his 5th season as a forward for the Nuggets. He is listed as a power forward, but he's only 23 years old. I think he has good size, 6'9", 240. You know, he's on a bigger contract than maybe you'd like. This could be a contract where you maybe maybe try to dump him throughout the season, get some value back from a, rebuilding tanking team. Do you think he's going to take a leap next season, Nuggets fans? I believe, he's a good two-way player. I'm not 100% familiar with his game, so please let me know, Nuggets fans. Peyton Watson got a lot of, flack last season for his play in the playoffs, all right? This guy is only 21 years old, and he's a great athlete. He has the capability, in my opinion, to have a breakout season next year. He has to be more consistent from the three, all right? He has to be able to knock down those corner threes a little bit more consistently. That's going to be the determining factor within his career, whether or not he's able to stay on the floor with this team. But listen, his defensive upside is immense, all right? This guy has, basically 1 through 4 defensive upside as far as who he's able to guard. Okay, at his best, I think he is a great defender for this team. He's exceptionally long as a defender. He's got great athleticism, great traits to him. He's also a good, I think he's a little bit smarter of a player than people give him credit for, but he's a defensive playmaker, shot blocker, weak side shot blocker. He's got good defensive intangibles, good defensive traits. I think he's a, great finisher at the rim. Again, another guy that can cut to the basket and finish in traffic. All right, so I just think he's 21 and he had a bigger role than maybe he was equipped to handle last season, especially in the playoffs. If he's able to knock down that three, man, he will be a lethal 3-and-D guy moving forward in his career. But I just think he gets better season by season, and I think you develop him into a monster two-way player as far as like a 3-and-D wing goes. One of the higher upside players on this team that hasn't reached their ceiling yet is Peyton Watson. No question. I think he's clearly due for a big season next year, due for kind of a make or break season with this team. If he's unable to knock down a consistent corner three, we could see him be lifted off the floor, but he's only 21 and he's a great athlete and already showing signs of a great defender. I don't see how you don't love this player as a project piece. I don't think he'll have as big of a role next season because he brought in so much depth, but I do think he's probably your wing substitution for an MPJ, but certainly one of the more capable defenders on this team. No question about it. I just think, where are we on Peyton Watson? A lot of people are saying like last season during the playoffs, like if they just had an upgrade on him, they would have won. I just don't know if that's fair to him personally, because it's not his fault that he just had a bigger role than he was supposed to. I just think, they didn't have the depth and he had to, step up. And as a 20-year-old player last season, I think he did okay at that. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments section. I just think he has a very high upside. I love this player. Jalen Pickett, another guard that you have on this team, was another player acquired from Indiana. This is another guy that I think has shooting upside at the guard position. Could be your developmental backup point guard, not necessarily next year, but maybe in a few years to develop him into a guy that can play at a combo guard role off the bench. Hunter Tyson, another second-round pick you acquired last season, all right? And Hunter Tyson is a forward, 6'8", 215. Do we think he has a role next season? Let me know down in the comments. We talked about DaRon Holmes and how he fits, with this team as far as like a backup 5 goes. I think he could be the backup 5. Again, I think he has a little bit more athletic juice than some of these other guys. I think, between him and Dario Saric, they're going to have to earn that role. DeAndre Jordan, another guy that could, stagger. I think it just depends on matchups, but hopefully Holmes is more ready than, maybe we would suggest offensively. He's going to have to be able to have good reads offensively with the basketball, maybe play in the dunker spot. I think he could be good at that. I think he's just a good finisher. I think he's a good roll man, screen setter, high energy, gritty type of backup 5, a little bit undersized. I just think his rim protection is a big, boost for this team off the bench. And, player that comes in and hopefully can fill out a little bit of depth for that front court that hopefully is good enough you could play in the playoffs. It's hard to play rookie centers in the playoffs, right? That's one of the positions. Rookie point guards and centers, they have the most work to do as far as, making mistakes and not doing that consistently. But I think, defensively, he's a big time ceiling guy, all right? So I love the energy there, and I love the, different look at center there. We also have Vlatko Cancar, I believe. Is it Cancar or Cancar? Please let me, I don't think it's Cancar. It's probably Cancer or Cancar. This guy he's listed as a small forward. Please forgive me, all right? Please forgive me, Nuggets fans. I'm not clueless, all right? I do watch a lot of Nuggets basketball. I'm just kind of clueless on this guy in particular. Some of these guys who didn't have a big role last season, I'm a little fuzzy on. So, I do a lot of research for these videos, but please forgive me on this one. This is really bad that I don't know a ton about this person, but it appears to me that he is a great floor spacer as a forward. Shot 37% on 2 attempts per game at a 6'8", 236 player. That's very, very good. He could be a power forward with that size, or he could be a wing. I don't know. Please let me know. Again, please forgive me. That is the last player I was going to mention, because that is most of the roster, but I think the rotations look something like, if I'm not mistaken, the starting lineup's going to be Jamal Murray, either Christian Braun or Julian Strawther. At the 2, it's certainly going to be one of those guys, probably Christian Braun if I had to guess. I don't think you start Westbrook, and I don't think you start Strawther just yet. I could be wrong, please let me know, but I think it's going to be most likely Jamal Murray, Christian Braun, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. And then off the bench, you're going to have something like Russell Westbrook. At the backup 1, at the backup 2, you're going to have Strawther. At the backup 3, you're going to have Peyton Watson. At the backup 4, you're going to have maybe Dario Saric, probably Dario Saric, honestly. And at the backup 5, you're going to have DaRon Holmes. And at the third string 5, you're going to have DeAndre Jordan. So I think that's probably what your depth chart looks something like next season. And I think that is a well above average upgrade as far as last season goes, because I mean, come playoff time, you had like 2 playable players off the bench, and one of them was Christian Braun, and then Reggie Jackson was the other. So it was like Reggie Jackson, Christian Braun, and backup 5 was so much of an issue last year. Hunter Tyson could be in the mix for a backup forward. Cancar could be in the mix for a backup forward. Jalen Pickett could be in the mix for a backup, combo guard. But yeah, if I made any mistakes throughout this video, please let me know. I just think my take basically is that, the Nuggets are so good at the top of their roster talent-wise, having the best player in the world, having a top 20, 30 player in the world in Murray, and having 2, excellent elite tier off-ball, role players that can do so much for you guys in MPJ and Aaron Gordon. That just elevates your floor so high that there's no shot you can tell me this team isn't a top 4, top 5 seed at minimum, with a, upside of finals ring next season in the Western Conference. I know the West is going to be a wild west next season, just like last year. It's even better than last year, in my opinion. You have 12 teams that can be a playoff team realistically. You basically have, 5 teams that are similar tier. I think you're looking at like the Thunder as your biggest comp, the Wolves as your biggest comp. It's like the Thunder, the Wolves, you guys, and then the Dallas Mavericks are right there too. There's like 4 or 5 teams in the West that I think are like almost as good as you, or as good as you if you're a Nuggets fan. But I just think with the best player in the world, you're gonna have the advantage over some of those teams. The Wolves matchup isn't great. I'll just be honest. The matchup against the Thunder might not be the best either, but I think as far as matchups go, you're just looking to avoid the Wolves at all costs, because that was literally maybe the worst matchup you could have had last season. And there's other teams in the mix too. There's either like 12 or 13 teams in the West that could realistically be a play-in or playoff team, but you guys are at the top of that list, no question. If you're a Nuggets fan, please let me know how I did throughout this video with your team. If you're a Nuggets fan, I do appreciate you guys correcting me all the time. I'm gonna get things wrong. I do a little bit of good research, I think, for these videos. They are very long, and it would take me 4 hours to dive through every single player and watch all their film before these videos. It's just not realistic. So I do my best with all these players. I watch a ton of basketball throughout the season. I do a little bit of extra research for these videos in particular, but there's just some things I'm not going to be super keen on, like some of these role players as I mentioned in this video. Please don't hold that against me too much if you could be so kind. If you do, I understand, but I promise you I'm putting effort into this. All right, I promise you I am. Please let me know down in the comment section anything I missed, anything I got wrong. Again, Nuggets fans, thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. I really appreciate you guys. Leave a like on the video if you guys did enjoy it. It really means a lot to me. Helps the video out a ton. So if you want more people to see it, it's the best way to share it other than directly. Like, you could share it to your friends, sure, but like dropping a like on the video actually pushes it into the algorithm. So if you guys could do that, it would mean a ton to me. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. We do videos just like this on the channel every single day. All right, so all things NBA every day. Check out the deep dive series. This is the latest installment. We have one more to go, and now I think it's clear it's the Boston Celtics. We'll be doing that tomorrow, and then after that it's business as usual. Make sure you guys follow my Twitch. We're gonna be starting over there literally this week because 2K is coming out and I want to play that with you guys. But yeah, follow my Twitch if you want to engage with me. I want to talk to you guys in real time. The comments are great and all, but it's just a different way to engage in it, like a Twitch chat. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that, please follow. It would mean a ton to me. We're gonna be streaming quite often and quite regularly over there coming this week. Other than that, just subscribe, tell a friend, whatever you could do. That's the biggest thing you can do. Leave a like on the video, subscribe, stay tuned. A lot of more fun stuff planned. Season's coming up. I'm so hyped. From 1 to 10 Nuggets fans, how panicked are you? I would be more at like a 2 or a 3 if I were you guys. I just don't think it's going to be the end of the world losing KCP. Obviously a great player, obviously a great fit with your team. But again, the development of Strawther, the development of Christian Braun, these guys are, capable 2 guards. All right. So I just don't think it's the end of the world. I do think you lose a lot more defense than offense. I don't think the shooting will be that big of a deal. I really don't. He's a great shooter, but you have other great shooters. And I just think the defense is what you should maybe mostly be concerned about, but it's just a lot of stuff about like, whether Peyton Watson can shoot a consistent 3. He's certainly going to be in line for maybe the most versatile defender, as far as people on the wing. So it's just an interesting situation. I do think you win anywhere from 50 to 60 games next next season. You're just that great. Hopefully everyone stays healthy. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day today, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Good luck, Nuggets, next season. I'm rooting for you guys. I wish every team the best. I want, the best result we can have as an NBA fan, so whether that's the Nuggets winning, I just want every team to play their best, and then whatever that result is, I think we just enjoy it as NBA fans. So I want you guys to do well next season. I want every team to do well next season, including my Sixers, but hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. This is your boy D Haven as always. Peace.